Welcome to episode 3 of the B5 podcast. 3 years after episode 2, right on time. And, man, what can I even say? You know, we lived through Joe Biden's presidency. He's not president anymore. We're back to Trump. And, man, that's pretty fucking retarded. But, damn, man. It's actually super fucking retarded. And the oligarchy's here. We got Nazis going on. It's fully rocking up in episode 3 right now. And damn, where do I even start, man? Like 3 fucking years. I think the last episode I was like just leaving. I didn't listen to it before I started recording this, but I know it was like the Eight-Legged Freaks thing or something. And that was back when I was still on TikTok, and like people came from TikTok to watch that. And, you know, it's pretty funny, I guess. I don't know. I just recapped the entire movie of Eight-Legged Freaks. But, yeah, I think I was, like, moving out of Minneapolis, or about to move out of Minneapolis when I recorded that. And then I moved to Boulder, Colorado. And I've lived here for, I guess, three years. And, yeah, I went to film school. I recently just quit my job as a landscaper. I was landscaping for like the last half of a year, maybe like 8 months, and like mowing lawns and stuff. And yeah, I don't really give a shit about that. Like, work's fucking lame. School's fucking lame. Man, I had so many fucking crazy things happen. Like, I don't even know where to start. Like, damn, dude. Let's see. What can we even talk about? Like, I guess, okay, so right now, and like over the last 3 years, I've been working on music. I've put out like some songs. And then I've been working on a sci-fi screenplay for like a sci-fi animated series, and I've gone through like several different versions of that. Sorry, I'm kind of drunk. Might be burping. I'm drinking vodka and Sprite. I'm just kind of raw dogging this. But yeah, man. I mean, the real news is that, so I've been working on those things. I kind of just started posting on YouTube again more consistently. I put out animation I made with my friend. Like, we made it a couple years ago now, but it's still probably my favorite thing I've made. It was like a stop motion thing, and it was kind of a concept animation for my sci-fi story, which is now very different. But yeah, like the first version I wrote, I was in a screenplay class, and the final project was a 10-page screenplay, like, you know, and then you do like a table read and then like get feedback on it and stuff, and like you learn how to write a screenplay and whatever, and there's different writing exercises we did. But yeah, so I wrote this screenplay, and I came in, the final assignment was 10 pages, I came in with 60. And like I had it like pretty well developed and stuff, and we all did like a table read for like I think it was like the last 10 pages is what we ended up doing for it. But yeah, it went over well. Like, people liked it. And then even like a couple weeks ago, I was on a set. I was a background extra in like a house party scene. I was huffing galaxy gas in the background. And the director or whatever was in my screenplay class, and like he remembered the screenplay I wrote, and he's like, yeah, that was really good. And then he wanted to work with me on like a comedy screenplay, and I don't really write comedy. Like, I've made obviously like Halo machinimas or like dumb sketches or whatever, but like it's all improvised. Like, I don't write it. I just kind of come up with like a rough concept and then riff off of that. So I wasn't really sure I wanted to write a comedy movie, so I never really got back to him or anything. But just the fact that like he remembered it, thought it was good, and then wanted to work with me was kind of validating. But anyway, I scrapped that first version, started working on a second version, and like kept the same like plot points and stuff are all still there, and like it's the same characters and stuff. I've just kind of been tweaking the story. And then I got the second one to like 28 pages. And then I stopped again and started over. And now I'm working on this third version, which is going to be the final version. Like, I think I've gotten like the general plot kind of nailed down. I'm just kind of like going through writing it now and like making sure everything makes logical sense. And it's kind of like a grounded detective story in like a sci-fi universe. And it's a little bit of the plot of like The Third Man kind of, but like I was just kind of using that as a template. Like, it's obviously different, but like that's kind of the vibe. And so I've been working on that a lot, like an insane amount, like especially since because basically like I quit my job. I had enough money saved up where I'm like wanting to just focus on creative shit for a while. And so I've been working on like YouTube stuff, more music, and then that screenplay. And like I'll sit down and I'll like write, and like most of the time I'm writing, like I'll write like a line and then I'll just sit there for 40 minutes thinking about it. So it's like kind of slow going, but I got it up to, I think it was 14 or 15 pages. And then like I have a lot outlined, so it should be easy to kind of fill in and like expand that. But my goal is to get it to like 95-ish pages, which would be like an hour and a half if they say like a page is a minute or so, roughly. So anyway, random creative ramble, but yeah, that's kind of the main thing I've been working on, and that's really the only thing that fucking matters in my life to me anyway. But yeah, I mean, that's just been like a slow process. But yeah, I put out one new song in like October, and then I'm working on 5 more that are kind of a similar like acoustic guitar vocal thing, like very simple stuff. Like, it's not complex or anything, and it's not like amazing. It's just like simple music, which is all I'm capable of doing, but that's all I really like anyway. And so yeah, I'm working on like 5 more acoustic guitar songs, and then I got an electric guitar, so I've been starting to like jam with that, and I'm working on one electric guitar track, and then one like kind of electronic club track. And like I kind of went the opposite route, where like I started with electronic music and then transitioned into like acoustic guitar stuff. And I don't know how interesting this is all going to be to listen to in a podcast, but like, you know, random life update, I guess. Yeah, I'm trying to think of what else, man. I've had some weird roommates. Yeah, I guess I could talk about it. This is interesting. I'll tell some interesting stories of experiences, I guess, and just kind of riff off of that. But when I moved out here, and sorry if you can hear my fucking heater going. It's just automatic, so you might hear some air blowing. But yeah, so I moved out here, and my first roommate was a really cool person. She was like super nice and stuff, and she wasn't like a student or anything. She just worked. So, like, I was going to classes, and she would go to work, and, like, you know, we just kind of coexist and stuff. And we were pretty good friends. And we did, like, acid, like, I think the first week I moved here. And that was fucking awesome. Like, it was kind of weird, because, like, we were watching, I don't know if you've ever seen Broad City. It's, like, a girl show for sure. Like, I've never watched it on my own. I've always been in the presence of women when I've watched that show. But, we were watching like Broad City as like the come up was coming on, and all of a sudden, like, it was just this fucking weird episode, and like tonally it was strange, and it just got scary, and like we were just both like, whoa, we should not watch this. And then I made like a 3-hour playlist of like Paul McCartney and Beatles songs, and then we just like listened to Paul McCartney and the Beatles for like 3 hours, and like we were like coloring and stuff. And then there was like a storm front coming over the mountains, like outside the balcony. And I remember I walked out on the balcony and I just watched the storm front come over the mountain. And I was like crying because it was so beautiful. But it was like, that was cool. So anyway, we did that. And then anyway, though, like next couple of months, she gets this boyfriend, and then she ends up moving in with him. And so then she sublets like the remainder of her lease or whatever, and like didn't really consult with me or anything. Like, she just picked some random dude. So this guy moves in, and he worked at like a dispensary, I think, so he's like that type of dude, and he's like 30 years old, and I was like, I think I was 21 at the time. So there's like a 9-year gap, and like we didn't have anything in common. And I only had one conversation with this guy that lasted more than 30 seconds. And the one conversation I had with him, he was talking about like conspiracy theory shit, like just weird stuff. Like just weird, like obscure religious stuff, like occult things. And I had no fucking clue what he was saying, but he was always shroomed out. Like he was always on mushrooms. So like that's kind of like he was just incoherent and weird. And like once I talked to him that one time, I was like, that's enough for me. And then I was like never at the apartment because I just didn't want to see him. And so anyway, he ended up like, I don't know what his deal was, but he lived with me for like 2 months, and then he clogged the fucking sink. He would never wash any dishes or anything. Like he'd just make stuff and like leave it on the stove, and like wouldn't clean anything out. And I was just like, what the fuck, dude? Like you're fucking weird. And then he ended up, it was like 3 in the morning, and I was sleeping, and I hear like this like rustling in the living room, like just like somebody's like kind of breaking in is what it sounded like. I was like, what the fuck? And so I walk out into the living room. This dude took the window, like the window by the front door, it was like a sliding window, and he took it off like the frame and climbed through the window. And then he's like, oh, hey man, what's up? And I was like, hey, like what's going on? He's like, oh, I'm moving out. And he had like 3 garbage bags just full of shit, and he was climbing through the living room window. And I was like, did you like, why didn't you open the door? He's like, oh, I lost my keys and whatever. And so I was like, well, you're in here though, like you don't need to keep using the window. You could just like unlock the door and use the door and put the window back on. And like, you know, like I didn't say that, I was just thinking it. Like I remember I just walked and like unlocked the door and opened it and then put the window back on myself. And I was just like, what the fuck, dude? Like he was just moving out through the window with like garbage bags. Never saw that guy again, never heard from him again. And then I was like super pissed off with my last roommate because I was just like, I'm not going to do this. Like I'll buy you out of the rest of your lease, because at that point there's only like 3 months left. And I was just like, you know, like, no, like I'm not doing this again. Like, and I had to go back to Minnesota for something or whatever. So like I was going to leave. And she's like, yeah, okay, whatever. Like I'll figure it out. And I was just so fucking pissed off. So I leave, and like she was going to clean out his room and all that stuff. So like she was going to come back to the apartment, and I was like fine with that. Then when I'm back in Minnesota, she calls and is like, yeah, so like I have some friends that are going to be in Boulder, and like they're just going to stay at the room or whatever. And I was like, well, I don't want people like in the apartment when I'm not there, cause especially if it's people I don't know, and like I don't really trust your judge of character. And so like I didn't want them to like steal my Xbox or something, you know, like that was my main thing. I was like, don't fucking like, I want people to steal my shit. So I fucking leave, come back. The apartment's a fucking mess. The kitchen is like filled with like this yellow shit like in the sink, and it's like clogged again. And it's just like mold and like, I don't even fucking know, dude. Like I was gone like 5 days, and it was just like this fucking pigsty. And then the fucking thing that pissed me off though was like my room. Like somebody had been in my room, and like I don't know if people were sleeping in my bed or what the deal was, but like it was fucked up. Like shit was not where I left it, like whatever. And I even told her when I left, I was like, you know, like if anybody's in my room and like whatever happens, like, you know, I'm not like, I might pursue legal action, or I might tell the landlord like you're fucking me over here. Like I don't. And she was not a bad person. Like we were good friends before all this. So then it was just like, what the fuck? Like I just got screwed over basically because I was a nice guy, like probably too nice. And so whatever, I fucking call the maintenance guy, get the sink fixed. That was like $50 out of my own fucking pocket for her fucking friends. And then anyway, like she's like, yeah, well, I'm gonna like line up this next roommate, and like you can meet him before or whatever and like approve it. I'm like, okay, whatever. So she gets this other guy. He is a student. He's still like, I think he was like 27, so he's like still older than me, but he's like a med student. So like that right there is like, okay, he's definitely more responsible than I am, like if he's doing this or whatever. And I met him, and he was like an immigrant from like Colombia. And Dude, they do it different down in Colombia. Like, he was just like, he was a nice guy, but he was like a womanizer. Like, I do not, I'm not exaggerating this. He would have a new girl every single night of the week. Like, every single night of the week. Sometimes it'd be the same person more than once, but every single night of the week, it was like a new girl would be there. And so it got to the point where it was like he was kind of like a bro, you know, like Andrew Tate, manosphere shit. And so, like, you know, me, like, I can get along with anybody, so I don't really care, like, whether we agreed or not or whatever. But he would piss off these girls while they were over. And so I had to be here, like, at the apartment and, like, mediate these, like, arguments just because I was there. And I was like, I don't want to, like, do this. So I had to, like, mediate arguments between people, and then he'd just go have loud sex for, like, 5 hours. And, like, it was just fucking weird. But he's a really nice guy, and we'd go, like, bar hopping and stuff. And he'd wingman me, to be fair. Like, he was a nice, like, bro, like, good dude. But yeah, and then also, I don't know what the fuck it is about my roommates clogging the fucking sink, but, like, he would clog the sink. Like, he wouldn't, like, scrape off dishes before he washed them. Like, he'd just, like, throw full, like, there was, like, a full chicken carcass in the drain one time. And I was just like, what the fuck, man? Like, whatever. And so he lived there for, like, the remainder of the months or whatever. And, like, fuck, man, that was just, like, it was so annoying. Like, that whole process was annoying. And then it got to the point where the lease was up, and then I was gonna stay there. And so then I got to finally pick my fucking roommate. And I just picked one of my friends from college. And so we ended up living together for, like, 2 years. He's still one of my best friends. I just talked to him yesterday for, like, a good couple hours. But he lives in Texas now. And anyway, so shout out Finn, by the way. Finn is, he's a real homie. But yeah, before that, it was just fucking weird. So that was fucking weird. And then, like, I've had a bunch of weird classes with weird people. I've been weird, like, you know, like, I've been a dumbass. Like, I've learned a lot. Like, I've had a lot of weird experiences. And, like, I don't know, man. It was a fucking weird 3 years. A lot of drunk driving. When Finn lived with me, or whatever, we would, for, I think it was, like, a good couple of months, like, every weekend on Friday, we'd go to this stand-up comedy show in, like, the basement of a church in Denver. And it was, like, $15, and you get, like, a table, free drinks, free pizza, and, like, stand-up comedy. It was a good deal. It was, like, a local venue. And so we would do that every weekend. And we'd pregame in the parking lots. We'd just go in there, like, blitzed off of our asses, watch stand-up comedy. And, like, sometimes we'd, like, bring friends and stuff. And, like, they didn't do, like, crowd work. Like, it was usually just, like, people with prepared material. Like, they had crowd work nights, but we never went to those. But one time, like, the headlining comedian, because we were at, like, the table in front. It's not a big crowd. It's probably, like, 30 people. And this dude was just riffing on us because we were, like, the youngest people there. And he's like, oh, look, it's, like, the kids from Stranger Things and whatever. And he's, like, giving us shit. It was really funny, actually. And that was cool. But every single time, like, we'd just be super fucking drunk. So we'd drive back, like, 30 minutes just drunk as hell. And that was always, like, a highlight, too. Like, you know, like, there's videos of us just, like, slamming, like, Jack Daniels, like, pulling through an intersection, like, just perfectly fine driving, but, like, just blitzed off of our asses. And then we'd go to this, like, bar hopping event, and it was, like, unlimited free drinks until midnight, and it was only, like, $10 at 3 different bars, so you just, like, bar hop with, like, a huge crowd of people. And so we do that and then, like, drunk drive back. And me and my one roommate from Columbia started doing that first. And, like, it was over the summer and I wasn't taking any classes and he was taking some. And so, like, we'd just, like, go to this thing. I think it was, like, Thursday nights. And, like, literally just get back, like, as the sun is coming up. And, like, damn, dude, it was fucking nuts. And, yeah, I don't know. I met some cool people, though. And, like, I mean, honestly, like, those are probably the only really, like, fun things I've done around here. I mean, it's an interesting town. It's really interesting. It's just, like, I don't know, like, the first year I lived here, like I was like going to like frat parties and stuff because like my friends would go there, and I was like a little bit older, you know, because I took like a gap year and a half or whatever, and like I kind of went to like a few of those, and I was just like, yeah, I think I'm like a little bit. Even like still, I wasn't old or anything, but like you know, even just being like 1 or 2 years older than all those people was like a big disconnect in like social dynamics. So I was just like not into that. And kind of stopped going to those things. But I did end up going into like house shows, and like a lot of my friends lived in a house, and they'd have like house shows in the living room. And so like I met a lot of local bands, and I'd play the after party sometimes. I had like a couple songs I could play on acoustic guitar. So like you know for like 10 people that were like people that lived in the house, or like you know just some leftovers after the party. Like I'd play a couple songs or whatever, and that was cool. And then now I started working that landscaping thing after I stopped going to school, and then you know most people like move away and stuff, so I've kind of just been like in limbo, and I'm waiting for my lease to be up now so I can move again, and I'm gonna move out west, kind of like by the Seattle area, in a couple of months, and so I'm kind of excited for that. But I just actually went out there last Thanksgiving, over Thanksgiving break, and spent like a week out there in Seattle and like Tacoma, and then Astoria, Oregon. Kind of my favorite place in the world, but I went out there, went on a good trip. I drove through like Boise, Idaho for the first time. Really cool town, by the way. You wouldn't think it, but like that whole area is really fucking cool. And I met a local musician there. Really good live music scene. It's like kind of country, but like really fucking good. And yeah, I mean, I don't know what else I can really say about me. That's kind of just an incoherent recap of like the last 3 years. Um, I had like a fucking couple days span out of like a coming of age movie where I went to that bar hopping event, and you know, I don't want to get too personal, but I might as well fucking just chat it, because, like, what the fuck else am I going to talk about? So, it was, like, I think, like, we'd already gone to this place a bunch of times, and so it was, like, the bar hopping event or whatever, and basically, like, the dynamic there is, like, you meet people and you talk to people in line at the bar, and then when you're inside, you're kind of just, like, with the group of people, you know, and then if you don't have a group of people when you go inside, you're kind of shit out of luck. But usually I'd like go with friends and stuff, so it didn't really matter. But so anyway, it was like the last bar, like the third bar, and it was like getting close to like midnight and stuff. And the only thing with midnight, like the bars don't close at midnight, but like the free drinks stop at midnight. So like usually everybody really tries to get it in before midnight. And so we were like in line for the last bar, and honestly, I'll give myself some credit, because like, you know, alcohol definitely makes me like 400 times cooler than I actually am. So like I just don't give a fuck, and like all the time, because I'm just like, you know, I'll probably never see these people again, so I'll always just go for like, you know, if I see like the hottest girl ever, I'm like, fuck, I'll go talk to her. I don't give a shit. And surprisingly successful hit rate on that. Not hit rate in like that sense, I mean success rate, you know, but also hit rate, swag, baller, whatever. But anyway, I saw this girl in line, and my friend from Colombia or whatever, like the womanizer, was like, you know, like, oh, that's the hottest girl like I've seen here, like she's definitely the baddest bitch, is what he said. And I was like, oh yeah, okay, cool. So I walked up and I was like, do you want a cigarette? And then she's like, oh yeah. And then we just started talking, and we were talking about like music and stuff, and like she made music too, and then we were talking about that. And then she's like, well, I gotta go to the bathroom. And I was like, well, the line's still pretty long or whatever. And she's like, yeah, like, here, come on, like, I know a spot or whatever. So we like go into this back alleyway, and just like immediately just start making out and stuff. And I remember it was really funny, because we were like making out, and she stopped. She's like, so what kind of music do you like? And I was like, oh, I like 90s, like alternative, like kind of like grunge stuff, like Alice in Chains. She's like, oh, that's so hot. And I was just like, okay, cool. And then we were like going down this alleyway. We ended up getting like lost, and we had to like hop a fence. And I was like, you know, I'm respectful or whatever, so I don't want to like be like all touchy or anything, but I had to help her over the fence. She's like, you can like grab ass if you want to like help me over. I was like, okay, say less. So like did that. We hopped the fence, land in like there's like six cops like right on the other side of the fence, and then they just look at us like we're fucking retarded. And I was just like, I gave him like a little like howdy like head nod thing, but I didn't like, we just kind of left. And I was like, oh gosh, whatever. And so then we kind of made it back to the bar, and her friends were like wanting her to go back or whatever, and then my friend wanted to leave too. And then I was like, well, what are you doing tomorrow? And because it's the summer, you know, I'm not working or anything. I'm done with classes. I'm taking a break, and like, you know, didn't have shit to do. And then she's like, oh, I'm not really doing anything or whatever. I was like, well, do you want to hang out tomorrow? And she's like, yeah, sure. And I was like, well, because I mean, you go to a bar, you get drunk, you talk to people, you say things, and it's like, I've had that before where it's like, it just doesn't happen. So I was like, are you serious? And she's like, yeah. And I was like, okay, cool. So then the next day, you know, both sober at this point. And then I was like, so, like, did you actually still want to meet up or whatever? And she's like, yeah. So we go and meet up at the state park. And, you know, I get there kind of early and I wait. And then she pulls up with, like, her friend or whatever. And I was like, oh, that's weird. I didn't really expect that. But I'm, like, also like, yeah, I guess you wouldn't want to meet a guy you've only met once at, like, a secluded state park alone. So I was just like, okay, whatever. She didn't tell me her friend invited two other dudes. And I don't think those two other dudes knew that I would be there because the whole dynamic was fucking weird. And then also, like, because, like, I don't have a lot of self-confidence or anything either. So I was just like, oh, like, once these guys showed up, I was like, oh, well, she's not going to want to, like, have anything to do with me. But no, she did. We kept talking, like, kind of just, like, let the two dudes and her friend, like, do their thing. And then whatever. And so we hung out at this like Reservoir State Park thing and just kept hanging out or whatever. And ended up we were all drunk then by this point because we were just drinking. And went and got pizza or whatever, and then went to a different park in town and like just ate pizza and stuff. And I kind of wanted to leave at this point because it was like the conversation dynamic and shit was just not, I wasn't feeling it. And anyway, we keep hanging out. We go to like a different park. At this point, it's like night. We break into a fucking water park. I'm not even kidding. Like it was literally like a coming of age movie scene. And it was like we break into this fucking water park, and there's no like the water slides aren't running or anything, but like for whatever fucking reason, we get the bright idea to like go down these dry water slides. Buddy, let me tell you, it don't feel too good to go down a dry ass water slide. But we didn't fucking think that far ahead, so she goes down first, and then the two dudes are up there with me, and they're like, oh, you gotta go after her, dude, like, whatever, and I was like, okay. So I go down the water slide, burn my fucking back, go, like, hit the water. As soon as I hit the water and come up, the fucking dumbass behind me comes down, kicks me in the fucking jaw, and then, like, I get, like, my fucking head rocked. And I was like, you fucking, like, I was just like, fuck. And I, like, went under the water and came up. And immediately she, like, grabbed me and was like, are you okay? And I was like, yeah. And she's like, no, like, are you okay? And I was like, yeah. But I kind of want to, like, you know, like, we hung out a little bit longer there. But, like, eventually, whatever. We ended up leaving. And then those three stayed there. And we drove back to my place, which is, like, you know, an hour away. And I don't know, man. Like, I kept thinking it would never work. And then, like, everything just kept working. So it's just like, okay, well, like, whatever. And so, anyway, she ended up staying with me for, like, a few days. And then I had to leave because I was going back to Minnesota for, like, some film thing or something. I don't really remember what it was. And then she had to go to Utah for, like, a concert she was performing at or whatever. And so it was just like this coincidence where like the timelines lined up for like those few days. And we were watching like, you know, just movies and like talking about life and stuff. Like it was really awesome. And then we had to like split up, you know, like because we had these like obligations beforehand. And so like it was, the drive back was just like sad, and it was sad for both of us. And like, I don't even know, dude. Like it was like really like just like you could tell it was like the end of this thing, even though we could probably see each other again when we both came back, and we did a couple of times, but like you could tell like it was the end of that like initial connection and like relationship. Like you could just feel it. And I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Roman Holiday, but like the ending scene of that movie where like they both have to say goodbye and they're in the car together and like just making it last as long as possible and like whatever, like that's literally like that scene basically is exactly what happened to me. And I saw that movie after that and I was like, oh shit, like fuck, I almost like teared up. But anyway, yeah, that was the end of that. I don't know why I shared all that, probably because I'm drunk. But I'd say that's probably the best thing I've experienced since I've moved here. And I've made a lot of good friends too. And shit, man, I met Nick Mullen and Adam Friedland, and I've gone to like a bunch of stand-up shows, bunch of concerts. Yeah, let me talk about that. I'll switch topics. So a couple of months ago, Nick Mullen was filming his comedy special in Denver, Year of the Dragon, and I was actually at that show. Like, if you go and watch his special, I was there, and shout out to him. Like, he stayed after the show and like talked to every single, like the line almost went around the block, and like he talked to every single person for as long as they wanted to talk to him, and he was super nice. And I didn't want to take up too much of his time, but I was in line or whatever, and I met this dude there, and Come Town fans fucking get each other, so it was just like two dudes, we were talking or whatever, and after the show or whatever, we were like in line to meet him, and I wasn't really paying attention, but we walked by this dude that was just like smoking a cigarette. And I didn't really look at him or anything, but he's like, oh, dude, like that's Adam right there. And I was like, oh, shit, okay. So then I like stopped off out of line or whatever. And Adam was just drunk as hell. Like he was super drunk. And he did like the opening like introduction for Nick. Like he did like maybe like 10 minutes of stand up or whatever. And so anyway, he was like drunk smoking a cigarette, and I was drunk, and I was like, oh, I'll fucking smoke a cigarette with Adam. So we took a picture and stuff, and it was funny because he's like, throw up the dub, and he's like, we're the champs, and like all this stuff, and he was really nice, but he was like pretty drunk, so then whatever, said hello to him for a little bit, and then got back into line, and get up to Nick, and I don't know, man, like, I don't really like get starstruck or anything. Like I've talked to a lot of like some of my political heroes. Like I've met the governor of Minnesota before, like not Tim Walz, Mark Dayton, the one before him, but like I meet people and usually like, yeah, sure, like I look up to them in like some creative aspect, but like I'm not ever like at a loss for words. But I was just kind of like, I didn't know what to say to him, so like I just kind of talked to him a little bit, and I was like, I really like what you're doing with the Adam. At that point in time, they were actually like still making episodes of that show, and like they just did the episode with like the silent film like introduction or whatever, like a couple weeks before that. And I told him, I was like, that was really profound and like cool, and keep doing what you're doing and whatever. And then I was telling him, he asked me like what I was doing, and I was like, yeah, I'm a film student or whatever. And he's like, oh, well, the people that shot my special are like right over there, like you should go talk to them if you're interested. And I was like, oh shit, yeah, like I'll do that, man, like whatever. And so I go over and I talk to like the film crew, and like I talked to it was this lady that like ran the production company or whatever, and she's just talking about like New York, and she's like, yeah, you should move to New York, like if you want to get into film, there's a lot of like job opportunities and stuff, and like production companies and all that stuff. And I was like, oh, okay. And then I was talking about what I was doing, like animation and stuff, and then Adam came over, and like he was talking to the other film people, and we were all just kind of talking for a bit in like a group. And yeah, that was cool. And then I was like, all right, well, I'm gonna like go or whatever. And so that was kind of the end of that. But then a couple months later, Adam came back around just by himself, and he did like a stand-up show, and I went with one of my buddies, and it was really funny. And then afterwards, I didn't really care to like hang out afterwards and meet him again, because like whatever, but he did the same thing. Like he just like goes and like waits for everybody that wants to talk to him, and like I've been to like a bunch of comedy shows, like that's not normal, and like I've been to like a bunch of concerts and stuff like that never happens. So shout out to those guys. They're like actually good dudes, despite being like edgelords and stuff. But yeah, it was really cool. It was cool to meet them, and they're my best friends. What can I say? So yeah, but anyway, yeah, I did that, and then I've been to like a bunch of concerts. I was going to like this radio meetup thing too for like local artists for a while or whatever. But I saw the Smile, which was fucking crazy. Like I was like 10 people back from like Tom York, and that was just fucking like so inspiring creatively. Like that was just crazy. And then I saw Nation of Language, who's kind of like a smaller like indie synth pop band. I've seen them twice in Denver. I saw them the first year I was here, and then I saw them last year. And I was like front row like both times because it's just like an open venue where it's like standing room. So I just showed up early, and fucking incredible, like just super fucking cool. Never really talked to him or anything. I did meet the synth player who's like the wife of the lead singer or whatever. And I talked to her for like 5 minutes in like the back of the venue. But yeah, I don't know. Like, it's just fucking cool, man. Like a lot of art and stuff. I don't do that so much anymore, but it was just really cool. Sorry, there's a garage door opening. I live right above fucking garage doors, so you might hear that. But yeah, dude, it was fucking cool. And then the other cool thing is that I was in the same program as the South Park creators in film school or whatever. So like there's a podcast clip or whatever that came out, I think it was like last year or something, but it was Trey talking about like their college experience and like how their classes were structured. And it was the same exact structure that I had, and some of the same professors were there. I never had any of the same professors that they had, but they were still there, or some of them were. And so like that was fucking cool. And so like I was making my stop motion thing, which is again my favorite thing I made with my friend. Like we were in the stop motion lab shooting that, and then on the wall next to like the stop motion stuff is just like framed posters of like South Park magazine covers and stuff. And I was just like, damn, like I'm really doing it. Like it was the one time in my life creatively where I really felt like this is where I should be and this is what I'm doing or whatever. And full credit to my friend. He actually drew everything, and then I shot it. Like he had to go to class or whatever. And so I spent like 12 hours shooting this like 2-minute stop motion thing and like editing it, and I did all the sound and like mixed everything. I did the soundtrack, I made the music for it, and then my friend like drew it. And it was like a really good collaboration, and I hope I'm still going to keep working with him or whatever, but like that was probably like the peak of my film school experience. It was just super awesome. And then trying to think of anything else cool that's happened like that. Let's see. I met I met my local representative when I was working. I was on lunch break, and he was like walking by, and I don't think he's used to like people recognizing him. Because, like, only fucking nerds really know who their, like, local representatives are and what they look like. And so I was like, oh, like, are you whatever? Like, I said his name, and he's like, oh, yeah. And he seemed kind of, like, sketched out by it. And I was like, oh. I was like, well, I voted for you or whatever. And, like, he's one of the chairs of the Progressive Caucus, Jonah Geis. Shout out, Jonah Geis. But, really nice guy. And he had, like, his kids with him and stuff, too, so I didn't want to, like, bother him too much. But I was just like, oh, I voted for you. Like, keep doing what you're doing. You're doing a good job. And he's like, oh, and then he, like, came over and, like, shook my hand, and he's like, call me Joe, and, like, talked to me a little bit, and, like, it was just really positive. That was cool. But, yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to think of, like, 3 fucking years. So much has happened. I'm probably missing a lot, but those are, like, all things that I thought were cool. Those are kind of more recent things, I guess. But, yeah, I don't know, man. Like, it's just fucking weird. It's weird it's been so long, because I kind of remember, like, where I was and, like, what was going on when I recorded the last episode, and, like, it's just so strange. It's really just strange. But, yeah, I guess on, like, a less personal note, I've been watching some really fucking good movies lately. Which, like, when I write and stuff, like, I'll throw on a movie and, like, because my writing process is very much like, write a line, look at it, think about it, it's very slow. So, like, I'll throw on a movie while I do it. And, like, I've been watching, like, a lot of rom-coms and shit lately. Like, I have the Criterion channel or whatever, so they kind of filter through, like, a lot of really good movies. But they had the Cameron Crowe, like, collection of, Say Anything, Singles, and Almost Famous. And first of all three of those movies are fucking great. Secondly, though, the last time I went to Seattle or whatever over Thanksgiving, I actually went because Singles is like one of my favorite movies. Like my mom showed me it like years ago, and it's just like this '90s like grunge time capsule, like very Seattle movie, and like I don't really care for like some of the plot points as much as like the general vibe, Like I like some of the characters and like I like the setting and I like, when they have Alice in Chains or like Pearl Jam or Chris Cornell in like some scenes or whatever. But like the movie itself, like the vibe kind of outweighs the narrative, if that makes sense. But anyway, the apartment building for that movie I actually went to, and it was so surreal to like see like just like filming locations. Like it's usually like smaller in person. Like it's just kind of like it's strange. I kind of went to like some movie sets though. Like the Goonies was in Astoria, so like I didn't go to Astoria because of the Goonies. That was just kind of a coincidence. Like the first time I ended up there was when I was 18, and I was like kind of on this Odyssey trip, and I just ended up driving down the coast and coincidentally ended up there. And I was like, oh, they filmed the Goonies here and whatever. And so, like, I've seen all that stuff, like, years ago now. But, I'd never, like, bothered to seek out, like, Singles locations or any other, like, Seattle films. So I did that this last time, and I went to, like, the apartment building, a couple other spots, were, in the movie or whatever. And, just seeing that, though, like I said, like, it was just weird. Like, it's smaller, like, and it's just, like, a regular apartment building still. Like, there's no sign that like the movie was filmed there outside of there's like a poster in like the lobby entryway of the Singles movie poster, which I think's kind of cool. But like I mean otherwise it's just a regular apartment building. And then 10 Things I Hate About You was filmed in Tacoma, and I went to the high school that 10 Things About You was filmed at, and that was just like cool to see. And I don't, like, that movie's really good, don't get me wrong, but it's not, like, one of my favorites. I just kind of went there because it was, like, a coincidence. Like, it was kind of in the direction I was traveling, and I was like, oh, I've never been to Tacoma, so, like, I'll check that out. Dude, Tacoma's a fucking cool little town. Like, it's just really nice. They have, like, train lines running through the streets, and the high school, obviously, is, like, it looks like a fucking castle. Like, it's still a high school. Like, it's really cool. And then, yeah, I saw all the Goonies stuff, obviously, like Haystack Rock, and I don't know, man, like just a lot of film locations, really cool shit. But yeah, I've been watching, getting back to my main point, I guess, like a lot of rom-coms and also like real hardcore shit. Like I watched Assault on Precinct 13. Brother, let me tell you, that has quickly become one of my favorite fucking movies. Assault on Precinct 13 is so fucking sick, as is, like, every other John Carpenter film, like, politically left-wing, like, really on top of its social commentary on, like, capitalism and late-stage capitalism, like, back in, like, the 70s and 80s, too, like, he just predicted the fucking future. Like, They Live, or whatever, but Assault on Precinct 13 is so fucking cool because all the main actors aren't actual actors. Like, that's the only thing they've acted in. Like, it's fucking crazy. And it's the same thing, too, with George Romero and, like, his zombie movies. Like, I think there's really something to casting actors that are just regular people. Like, you almost get, like, more of a genuine performance. But, like, the main actor in Assault on Precinct 13, the cop, like, he's so, like, spatially aware, and, like, I don't know if, like, he actually, like, intended to do that, or if it's, like, he didn't really know how to act, so, like, he was just behaving that way, but, like, he's like looking around, he's scanning the scenery, he's really aware of what's going on. He drops some real hardcore fucking lines, like over the top stuff sometimes, but like it's so fucking cool. Like it's just so sick. And like every character's really smart, which is what I like. Like there's no dumb characters. And if they are, they fucking die. But like they're not even dumb, they're just naive. And they're coming from like a place, it's like The Thing, you know, like everybody's kind of smart in that, but like they all have their flaws, and like their decision making's flawed because of that, but it's not from like a place of stupidity, which is, in my opinion, a really good thing to pick up on, like writing wise. And I'm not really taking anything directly from these movies, I'm just like getting the general vibe and like influence creatively from that. But like Carpenter though, man, like he makes his own soundtracks, he writes it all, he directs it all, like it's a complete vision, and it really comes through, and it's just fucking awesome. Like I've watched Assault on Precinct 13 like 3 times in the last 2 weeks, and it doesn't get old. It's just so good. But yeah, on that note, I think I'll wrap it up here. Thanks for listening to all that bullshit. I don't know if it was worthwhile, but you know, that's kind of the quick version of a 3-year recap. And yeah, thanks for listening. Stay tuned for more. I'll try and be a little bit more consistent with these episodes. And yeah, see you guys next time.